get a lot of questions on Backyard Farmer about pines, but they might not be pines. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about the difference between some of our primary conifers, pine, spruce, and fir. And it makes a difference because the growth habit is different, the growth rate is different, the pests and diseases are different, and how they change character as they age is definitely different. So let's start with pines. Pines are one of the conifers that actually carry their needles in a bundle. And that is totally different from spruce and fir. So you will have a 2-needle pine, a 3-needle pine, a 5-needle pine. These are called fascicles. So if you pull that apart, you'll see 2, 3, 5 needles all coming from the same spot. Our pines typically start life as a pyramid, but as they age, they can become what we call an overstory tree. So they lose their lower branches, they might become picturesque, flat-topped, really a totally different character, and that means in the landscape they are going to take on both a different use and a different appearance. Pines also can be differentiated, of course, by their cones, and cones are one of the ways that we can say this is a white pine, this is a ponderosa, this is an Austrian pine. The scales on a pine cone are typically very hard and very stable. So they will fall off, they'll hang on the tree. Some cones ripen immediately, some are 2 or 3 years. But when they fall, they will typically remain in the landscape so that you can use them as a piece of identification for a very long time. Spruce and fir are harder for a lot of people to tell apart, and there are some differences. A lot of people are very familiar with Colorado blue spruce because, of course, it's blue and it's a pointy thing. One of the main differences between spruce, fir, and pine altogether is that pines carry their needles, as I said, in a bundle. Spruce and fir both have needles that are individual, so a single needle at one point on the branch. You can see the differences in the bud just looking at this Colorado blue spruce. Spruce and fir start life as a pyramid. They usually end life as a pyramid as well, so they will keep their lower branches. They will just elongate and spread slightly, but keep that pyramidal form unless they are shaded out or unfortunately pruned up for some reason. So they do not change shape when they age like a pine does. The other thing about spruce is that their cones are smaller. They are stable, but they are typically have notched scales on them, and they are not quite as stable as pine cones. So you may not find them in the landscape for more than about a season or so. This is an example of a fir, and the firs also carry their needles individually. This one is showing a little bit of environmental damage, so they're not usually this yellow, but they also have a different bud. The fir needles are flat, and if you would try to roll a spruce needle between your fingers, that would be square. One of the really neat things about firs also that is different is when they're old enough to produce cones, the cones are in the upper part of the tree, they stand straight up, and then once they shatter, which they do, which is why people don't see the cones very often, all they leave is what is called the central axis. So we will get calls from people who have firs and they say, these are dead little twig branches in my fir. No, they're not. That is a part of the cone. So again, one of the differences is the cones between those. And in addition, you'll notice that I can take my hand and run it over the fir, and I am not hollering because the needles on the fir are typically also not pointy and sharp. So again, it's important to know what kind of conifer you have in your landscape. These are only 3 examples, but they are really probably some of the most common examples. Pines carry their needles in a bundle and the cones are solid. Fir and spruce start life as a pyramid and end life as a pyramid, or else in the mulch pile. The cones on fir are going to shatter. The cones on spruce are not going to last as long as the cones on pines are. And this is a great example of a location on campus where you can see all 3 of those different types of conifers together in a group.